So here we go with another video. We're going to be talking today about finding your strength and then developing it and understanding how to get it to be even stronger. So what is your strength and what do I mean? So as we all perform, we have something that we do. Whatever the sport is, whatever the endeavor is, there's something that we have that we do that if you asked one of your teammates, you'd say, hey, what is it that you think I'm known for when we play? What is my upside? What is the thing that I do? Most people will be able to pick this out. Your parents, your coach typically are able to pick this out probably the quickest because they all know through watching you over and over and over again what it is. Now, you should know this yourself, but if you don't, I highly recommend using some film. Um, and when you're using film, I mean using your film to see who you really are, because a lot of us don't know who we are. Then sitting down with, I use a sketch pad because it's huge. I mean, you can go smaller than that if you want to. You can go with like a little composition book or something. But the main thing is write it down. Write down what it is that you do so that you understand. Because when we're trying to develop you to be able to become the best that you can be, whether that's in anything, it could be business, it could be performing arts, it could be sports, it could be anything, working with your relationships or whatever it is. Make sure that you understand what it is that you bring to the table and what your biggest assets are, so to speak. And then that way we have a starting point. So before we even get into anything further, well, for starters, in pursuit of excellence, that's what we're talking about. That we are pursuing excellence, and we need to know what it is that we're good about before we get into worrying about what the anatomy of the movements are. Because that's a little bit more technical, we'll worry about that in another discussion. But right now, what we're talking about is the 4-Hour Workweek. Tim Ferriss. He's the first person that is going to have impact on this whole strength thing, and the reason why is knowing what your strength is. It gets real clear on what you need to do, especially if you take Tim's whole 4-hour philosophy of do what is it if you had minimal amount of time that you could do that could have the most impact on your performance, and then focus on that and do that and make that the basis of what you're doing, because you truly do not have a ton of time. And a lot of times we overdo things and then waste time with things that don't really have much impact for us. So the 4-Hour Workweek, it's a great read, by the way, but the main thing is from that is, okay, what is the most important thing to focus on? So, and then we got a couple other books up here. Stedman Graham has a pretty nice roadmap in there. He is Oprah Winfrey's husband, in case you don't know who he is. He's a phenomenal leadership person. And then also Ryan Holiday with Obstacles Away. Often you'll find out that with your strength, if somebody prepares to try to stop your strength, this also creates a unique opportunity and then it creates an obstacle for you, but that obstacle becomes that next thing that's going to catapult you, because you know that they're going to have to try to stop this, and when they do, you can have an idea, a strategy in your mind, some tactics to employ. And then bold. Peter Diamandis is talking about bold actions, and when you sit down and you know what your strength is, and then it's boom, go all in and go hard and really, really get focused on the way that you can be the best with what it is that's your strength, and be bold with it. And all 4 books are phenomenal that are up here on the backstop here so that you can actually see them while I'm talking. So let's get into the strength thing a little bit, and we'll be quick. I'll sum this up in the next couple minutes. What is your strength? So get real clear on what it is first. Like I said, if you don't know what it is, go ahead and pull out the iPad and watch some of yourself on film. You should know at this point what your strength is. Then the next thing is, how do you train it? How are you training your strength to become even more dominant so that you really can massively utilize this skill? Then the next thing is, how do you develop the technique around it? What are you doing on a regular basis, this means every day, to develop the technique? Now, it's not just physical application of this either. There's a mental side of it. There's studying film. There's taking notes. There's brainstorming. Get creative with it. It's really important. Don't just stop by saying, "Oh, in football, my strength is I have a strong arm." Okay, well, if I'm a quarterback, well, that's great, but I mean, you need to be a little bit more specific than that, and then you need to understand how you can actually take advantage of that. So then the next thing is, how do you set it up? Meaning, how would you set up yourself in a performance and in a practice and in training to make sure you get the most out of that strength? And that could mean many different things. It could mean something that happens within the game. It could mean something that you prepare for by setting it up on the previous, if it was football, on the previous downs by leading somebody in a direction to think that you're doing something. It might mean the week before if it was football. It could mean the game before if it was, any sport. Oh, well, we saw them do this. This is their pattern. Boom, then you break the pattern and you use that as the setup to utilize your strength. Or every once in a while, maybe you don't go to your strength and you make it look like you are and feint that that's what you're going to do and then actually go back to something different. So how are you setting up? Next thing, what are the tactics that you're going to employ to perform? So, okay, so we've worked on the technique, now the tactics. Now, how do you plan on putting this into your game plan? And it doesn't mean that you have to be rigid and stick with the one thing. It just means that you should have an idea as how you're going to actually put this all together to help you. Then the next piece is, okay, so you're doing this and you're going to have to do it repetitiously. So as you get into a season, that wear and tear can start to break things down. So we have to make sure that we prepare your body to be able to sustainably do this. So we need to make sure that A, you have the stamina to do this as many times as you need to within a contest, and then B, that you have the ability to recover. And so that means we're going to have to train, again, like we said this before, the antagonist, and we need to make sure that we're training the opposite movement and that you can actually handle that so that you get to the end of the season when you need to peak and you're not shot. That's, again, like I'm saying, a lot of the kids over the summer, they say, oh, well, I'll see you again at the end of the summer, Mr. Kutri. Well, you need to be doing some stuff on your own then. You need to set up a consult with us so that you can train on your own wherever it is that you're going to be, because you don't want to wait the entire summer to try and regain your strength. By the end of the summer, you might have the biggest showcase ID camp or performance of the entire summer. And if at that point you've been taking 3 months off, you stand zero chance to actually perform at your peak level. Then the next one is, how do you track the success of that strength? So you need to have we've said this a million times, if you can't track it, you're going to have a difficult time trying to figure out how to impact it. So if you're trying to get the most out of yourself and you don't have any idea as to where you're at the end of a year, I ask kids, well, what did you do? What did you do the most? What was the success rate of that? And this may seem like a lot of analytics and stuff that's unnecessary, but at the same time, if you really don't know where you stand, how do you know whether or not you did a good job? How do you know whether or not your strategy's working, your tactics, your technique's working? If it wasn't important to give grades, they wouldn't give grades in school. It doesn't mean that it's about failing or passing, it's about improving. So you need to be able to track it so that you can also manage it and know what you need to adjust along the way as you move towards the championships. Then the last thing is, what is your growth plan around this strength? How do you plan on building it to become more than what it is? Because wherever the strength is right now, that's great for right now. But as your opponents and as the game changes and everything evolves, you have to evolve as well. So your technique needs to improve, or you need to employ some different support mechanisms around that, some different setups, some different transitions, some different things that you do that will optimize the ability for this strength to still be utilized at its full potential. So in summary, just going back through it, what is your strength? How are you training it? What are you doing to develop your technique? How do you set it up? What tactics do you employ to perform? What are you doing to make sure that you can sustain the stamina necessary to employ that? And then what are you doing to train the antagonist to make sure that you don't have an injury because of the reps that you need to put in? How do you track the success of it? And then what is your growth plan? These are all really important things, especially if you're thinking about the whole Tim Ferriss 4-hour philosophy. What can you do to optimize your strength in the least amount of time?